All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Our buddy Kyle Posey wrote a phenomenal piece on Niners Nation where he talked to, or at least gathered information from some anonymous scouts on the 49er draft choices. Not every one of them, but the first four or five. And some of the stuff is really, really good. And we're going to talk about it and read some of those reports coming up next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera, and they're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue you're going to find. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they will match you up to your first $100. That's K-R-U-E-G. And we're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue, down in Pacific Grove. Call Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264 for all your sports collectibles and playing card needs. Great little place down on the peninsula, or down on the Monterey Peninsula. And the first Friday of every month, they have a kind of a free food and drink out in front, and they do buying and trading out in front of their store, kind of a sidewalk type situation in the warmer summer months. So check that out. It's the first Friday of every month at Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. All right, let's talk a little bit about one of my favorite articles that I've read recently, and that was the anonymous scouts talking about the 49er draft choices, and our good buddy Kyle Posey from Niners Nation kind of put this out on NinersNation.com. And let's start with Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall, of course, the number one draft choice, 6'1", 191 pounds, went number 31 overall, started at ASU, transferred to Florida. It's interesting. One scout said, some people like him, but I really love the guy. A really good route runner in a deep class. I could see him getting passed up. I don't think people put him in the conversation with the real guys. When it's all said and done, he could be the best receiver in this group. So that was interesting. One other scout said he's got, I had him in the third round. Another scout said all of a sudden he runs 4.41 and I put him in the second. He's a faster Cooper Kupp, more of a slot type, although we played X and Z there. Good hands. So he says he might be in the Luke McCaffrey McConkey slot group, said a third scout. He ran fast too, but I didn't see that on the tape. So maybe he ran faster for the stopwatch than he actually runs. Interesting. I mean, anytime you're talking about, anonymous scouts, that's when they come out and tell the truth. Here's Bruce Feldman, who writes the Freaks list. He said the biggest problem is his contact balance. He has elite ball skills and he can run. He tested great at the combine, and those things show up in 7-on-7. But when you play real games and people start knocking you off your routes and pressing you at the line of scrimmage, that contact balance is an issue. So that's interesting. That's the first, I think, real criticism of Pearsall that I think is based on something that's actually real. That does he have enough contact balance to beat the jam at the line of scrimmage, to operate in the middle of the field at the NFL level? When he's getting knocked around, will he still be able to keep his feet? Or is he going to be a guy that you get into the Super Bowl against a Kansas City and, Trent McDuffie just shucks him at the line of scrimmage and he goes to the ground and there you go. He's taken out of the route. It's something definitely to watch for. How well does he release off the line of scrimmage? How strong is he on the line? Can he beat the jam? Can he play the physical game that's played in the NFL? I think that's a fair criticism. And we'll find out this summer. Another offensive assistant was quoted as saying, he reminds me of Ricky Prohl. I love the white guy comparisons. Yeah, it's he's a white receiver. Oh, he reminds me of Cooper Kupp, Ricky Prohl. He's Steve Largent. That always cracks me up. But this guy says he reminds me of Ricky Prohl. He's got that wiggle to him. The double moves, turn the corner, but you can't time him up in normal splits. And I think he's going to release and run by everybody. If you play in a Rams type offense where everything is motions, tight splits, and stacks, he has more value. That's interesting. I think that's an interesting observation. He was a 3-year starter, he's coming off a career season. This is what one scout said. He said, solid route runner who quickly gets into his breaks, then extends his hands to make the reception away from his frame, adjusts to the errant throw, uses his frame to shield away opponents, and possesses hand-eye coordination. Consistent hands catcher who lays out for the difficult catch and fights to come away with the reception in a crowd. Quick and elusive running after the catch and shows the ability to pick up positive yardage. Focused on opposing defensive backs, yet still makes plays. Interesting. He said, despite his 40 time at the combine, plays to one speed. Now, this is interesting. This is another criticism. He ran 4.41, but they're saying he plays to one speed, that he lacks a deep burst and isn't a vertical threat. So that is interesting. It's like he's a one-speeded receiver, doesn't have that extra gear to run by you. Can he gain? It's all about gaining separation at the NFL level. He did it at the collegiate level. Can he gain separation at the NFL level? And that's really what we're talking about here. The scout goes on to say moderately productive until last season, was never a big red zone threat. Pearsall was the number one target in the Gators passing game the last season, and the receiver opponents consistently focused on. He's a big pass catcher, not a fat. Nor he said he's not a big pass catcher, nor is he fast. Rather, Pearsall is a solid route runner with dependable hands who could catch on as a team's fifth receiver. Well, okay, so that's not good. If you're talking about a guy as the fifth receiver on the team, and you drafted him 31 overall. So, if you really want to get into the essence of the player, yeah, he's really good across the middle. He's got great ball skills. Shanahan loves him. There's all kinds of football people that think he's underrated. But you just heard from anonymous scouts what their issues are with him. They don't think he's got contact balance to win at the line of scrimmage and keep his feet. They think he can be knocked off course in a physical middle of the field in the NFL. They don't think he is going to be solid there. And that he's kind of one-speeded, and he doesn't really have that burst, and he can't burst by you and create that separation. And one guy thinks he's going to be a back of the receiving core type option. And if that's the case, then that was a bust, at 31. I don't see him as a starting receiver. I see him as more of a complementary receiver, but he could be a very effective complementary receiver. And I could be wrong. If he really is a poor man's Cooper Kupp, then he's obviously much better than a complimentary receiver. Cooper Kupp was the best receiver in the game. And Cooper Kupp ran in the 4.6s. This guy runs 4.4. So maybe he's fast enough. I think ultimately, and I said this on draft night, it's really going to come down to a factor that I have no knowledge of. And that is, how tough is Ricky Pearsall? If Ricky Pearsall's a tough son of a gun, and that's a great draft choice, because that means he's going to keep his feet, and he's going to battle in the middle of the field, and he's going to catch it in a crowd and take a big lick and hold on, and he's going to play hurt, and he's going to be this dependable middle of the field monster if he's tough. If he's not tough, then he's going to get hit one time and then kind of have alligator arms. If he's not tough, he's going to kind of tiptoe across the middle of the field, which is so unlike the Niner receivers who own the middle of the field. Debo, Jennings, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. None of those guys run across the middle of the field with any worry or any concern. They run across the middle of the field like they freaking own it. And if this guy's going to fit in on this team, he better do the same thing, because this is his game. He's not Xavier Worthy, running by corners down the sideline, creating 5 yards of separation. He's a route running monster with ball skills and hands, who's got to operate in the middle of the field and get bumped around and knocked around and just be totally undeterred by it. If he's totally bothered by the physicality of the NFL game, if he's not the toughest guy, then he's just going to be an okay player who's probably a bad draft choice, because he's a back of the receiving core type player. he's your wide receiver 3, 4, 5, and not 1, 2. If he's tough, maybe he's wide receiver 1, 2. But that's the factor. That whole scouting report, if you break it all down, it comes down to one factor. Is Ricky Pearsall tough? Can he keep his feet in the middle of the field? Can he win at the line of scrimmage? Can he battle the Tariq Woolens and the Kobe Bryants and all the different corners that he's going up against in the league? Quinyon Mitchell now, Cooper DeJean in Philly. Can he battle those corners and get off the line of scrimmage and get into his route? Or do they knock him on his can and intimidate him and rough him up and take him away? So that's it right there. That's the Ricky Pearsall. How tough is Ricky? That's the big question. All right, let's get on to the next one. The next one is Renardo Green, the Niners' second-round pick out of Florida State. Only Tony Pauline actually had a report on Green, and he said 2-year starter who took his game to another level last season, quick flipping his hips, better battles opponents throughout the action and uses his size as an advantage, physical and smooth. These are a lot of the same things that I would say about Green. Green's really, really fun to watch. He really is. Renardo Green is fun to watch. He says changes direction, gives effort, defending the run, effective facing the action, immediately diagnoses plays and locates of the pass in the air, which is great. Stays with assignments, has a nice move to the throw, must improve his back pedal, and he oftentimes gets flat-footed, slow locating the pass in the air, and does a lot of face guarding, which is bad. You don't want to do face guarding, and the film definitely showed that. Intercepted just one pass during his 5-year college career. Green displayed a lot of improvement in his game the past 2 seasons at Florida State and possesses the size, speed, and skill to be used in a zone system facing the action. Yeah, so, I mean, the Niners run a largely a zone system. But I think that's good. I mean, the one thing I would say, there's really two issues in his game that I see. Too many penalties. He gets a little grabby, gets a little aggressive. He's going to have to be disciplined on that front. And a little bit too much face guarding. In the NFL, you got to get your head turned with the ball in the air, or that's an automatic penalty. So I saw him face guarding on some balls down the sideline. You just got to turn your head. If you turn your head, you can actually be physical with the receiver, and you can make a kind of like a 50-50 play on the ball, and they'll give you all kinds of room for aggressiveness and even some hand fighting. But you have to get your head turned. If you don't get your head turned, you're just running, you're walling the guy off, you're face guarding, and they throw the flag every time. So that's going to be frustrating. If he gets caught face guarding and grabbing and he's Mr. Penalty, that's going to hurt his ability to stay on the field and get on the field, especially in a defensive backfield that's very, very, very deep. The Niners have options in the defensive backfield. All right, let's get to Dominic Pooney, the 3rd-round pick. It's funny, I guess, according to Kyle Posey, he said the scouts that Bruce Feldman talked to saw Pooney as a center. They had him ranked 3rd. He's 6'5", 317 pounds. Obviously started at Central Missouri, transferred to Kansas. Started 22 games at both tackle spots in 3 seasons for the Central Missouri Mules. And one scout says he's a 4-position player. He's a right tackle. He's not a left tackle. He can play guard and tackle at a backup level and may grow into a starting center. Maybe center is his best position. I like his temperament. So he started at Kansas, 13 games at left guard in 2022, 13 games at left tackle in 2023. A second scout said he's smooth. He's a smooth athlete. Much better pass blocker than a run blocker. He kind of plays like Division II. Am I good enough? I said he's got talent. Let's go. He'll flash movement, change of direction, and adjust to pass pro. You're like, all right, this guy can be really good. You just got to get it out of him. I try him at left tackle when he's on the move and He's got when he's says with his movement and natural athletic ability, he does some really nice things at left tackle. So one guy thinks he's a left tackle. His arm length was 33 and 3/8. His hands were 10 and an eighth. Those are huge hands. He says you love his size and his length and his strength. The third scout said he has some real foot speed limitations, more of a gap scheme guy. Would not be a great fit for outside zone. Well, I don't know if I would agree with that. That's what the scouts say. Obviously, the 49ers don't feel that way because they run an outside zone scheme and they drafted him and they like this guy. Now, here's what Tony Pauline, who's a really good scout, said. He said, large, nasty blocker who's best in a small area. Outstanding positional blocker who quickly sets up off the snap and stays square. Makes good use of angles, has the strength to turn defenders from the action and controls opponents in one-on-one blocking situations. Keeps defenders in front of him, keeps his feet moving, which is a great thing. Seals open running lanes, plays with a violent attitude, and would annihilate opponents. Displays outstanding awareness as well as vision and works well with teammates. Doesn't play like a great athlete, lacks footwork off the edge, must improve his balance and pass protection. Pooney had a terrific season at Kansas last year after transferring over from Central Missouri. He lacks the athleticism and the agility to play left tackle, but he has the ingredients to line up as a power blocking guard. Now, I actually think Pauline's on it. I think that report is what I would say as well. There's a nastiness to Pooney. This guy is looking to seek and destroy. I see what people say about left tackle. I don't think he's got the agility to kick out against big time speed rushers, but I think he's got a lot of ability to be a very dominant guard. And that's why I think there's a chance he could be the right guard this year. He could beat out Feliciano. He could beat out Burford, or one of those guys could move to a different position. He could wind up taking over and sharing the job with Burford, maybe a Burford and Pooney combo at right guard. We'll have to see how it all shakes out. But what I like about him, to me, I think you got to keep it simple because all these guys, they have to be taught so much. And unless you're talking about the blue chip guys at the top of the draft, and Pooney's not that, it's all about your offensive line coach. The Niners have a great offensive line coach. Chris Forster is a terrific coach. When he got on the phone with Pooney when they drafted him, he said, all right, you ready to come out here and get better? In other words, you're not there yet, kid, and you got a lot of work to do. And oftentimes offensive linemen do. And that's why rookie offensive linemen oftentimes don't start. And if they do start, they get abused. Because it's just so much of a different game in the NFL, and your technique matters so much more, and everything's so magnified. But what I really like, and what all I would really be looking for in offensive line prospects as a scout is, I want that nasty. I want that tough nastiness, that, the guy that's looking to bury you, the guy that's looking to drive you into the ground, because that can't be taught. I want athleticism. This kid's got that. I want the good arm length because, that nothing changes the geometry, especially at tackle. You got to have the arm length. But I prefer arm length at all my offensive line positions, including center. I don't need to have it. It's not the most important thing, but I like it. But I'm looking for nasty and athletic. Nasty and athletic and smart. I can work with that. I can say, hey, Chris, here's a guy. He's nasty. He's athletic. He's competitive as hell. And he's smart. Go work with him. And a month later, he's better. And 2 months later, he's better. And a year in, he's better. So I think that's what they got here in, Kingston from USC and Pooney, as well as Nugent and Mays after the draft. They got really athletic movers, tough guys. And now Chris, here it is. Coach him up, polish him up. They're like rare gems. Polish them up. Find out who can play right away. But those, if you want a great offensive lineman, especially at tackle, you better have a top 15, top 20 pick. If you don't have a top 15, top 20 pick, Don't do what a lot of teams did, like what Green Bay did, reaching for a short-armed, underpowered tackle in Jordan Morgan, just simply because they needed a tackle. Great. Well, this guy got bull rushed in the Pac-12 by 250-pound defensive ends, and now you've got a guy who probably projects at guard who's going to get bull rushed every snap by guys who are 310. How's that going to work for you, Green Bay? So, I mean, I think Green Bay blew that pick. To me, you go for the blue chip guys in the top 20, or you sit it out and you go find tough, nasty, athletic guys that need to be developed. And you try to get 3 or 4 of them, and hopefully your offensive line coach can develop them. And I think that's where the Niners are at with Nugent, with Mays, with Pooney, with Kingston. They feel like they've got guys who have some nasty, guys who have some athleticism, and Chris, do your magic, and we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. They took 4 of them. Probably a couple of them shake out and are decent players. My guess is it's Pooney and Kingston, but it could be Nugent. A lot of people love Nugent. He was a captain at Stanford. He was first team All Big Ten at Michigan. He doesn't deal well with speed, but other than that, he's tremendous. And Mays looks like a freaky athlete. I mean, this is a terrific athlete, and is a little bit more raw, but he might be the guy long term that's the best of all of them. That's how athletic he is, the kid from Southern Miss that they signed after the draft, Bryson Mays. All right, let's get to the last guy that the scouts looked at, and that is Malik Mustafa. And to me, my 2 favorite in this draft are Mustafa and Cowing. Mustafa is just he's what I like in a safety. He hits and he covers. And he's an alpha and he's a leader and he's tough and he's smart. So I love him. And as far as Cowing, he's a little receiver, but he's got awesome ball skills. And he scored 13 touchdowns last year. And I think he's going to step in and be a major player for the Niners. Major impact. I would even go as far to say I think Cowing might have a bigger impact immediately than Pearsall. And Cowing was taken in round 4. But he was great at UTEP. He went to Arizona. He was equally great. I watched him in the Territorial Cup against ASU. He had like 9 catches for 150 yards and a touchdown. Watched him a month later in the bowl game against Oklahoma. He had like 9 catches for, 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, the guy in his last 2 games had like 16 catches for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against good teams. So, quality opponents, big moments, big games, the rivalry game. And then of course the bowl game against a team that was favored. So big fan of Cowing, big fan of Mustafa. In Bruce Feldman's poll among safeties, Mustafa received 4 votes among scouts as the top safety in the class. 15 players got at least 1 vote in that. But that's, some people thought he was the best safety. One guy said every 4 years, safety is a mess. He said, this is a mess. This is a bad class. This was actually a major concern of mine going into the draft is I looked at the Niner depth chart and I said, they need 2 safeties. And I think I only like 5 safeties or 6 safeties in this entire draft class. And I'm like, what are the odds that normally there's like 20 or 30 guys that are pretty good, and even some late day 3 guys that are kind of borderline exciting. The Niners got one a few years ago in Talanoa Hufanga. But Malik Mustafa was one of my absolute favorites in this process because I knew he was going to be underdrafted because he's 5'10". Okay. They're looking for 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", not 5'10". He's 5'10". 206 pounds. He ran a marginal 40 time. He ran 4.54 in his 40 time. But once again, I don't care that much about 40 times when it comes to safeties. Jair Brown didn't run a good 40 time. Talanoa Hufanga was downright molasses slow. I mean, he was just ridiculously slow. But here's the thing on the instinct positions like safety and linebacker. If you know how to play, just watch the tape and you'll find out if they're field fast. If you know how to play, you're flowing in the right direction. If you don't know how to play and you don't have good instincts, Tarvarius Moore, I think, was a perfect example of this. He was huge and ran 4.32 and sucked. Now, sorry, Tarvarius, if you're watching this, it's not personal or anything. I'm just saying he was big and fast, and he was really a corner only because he had no safety instincts. I remember one game where they threw Niners Steelers at Levi's. They threw Juju Smith-Schuster a pass, should have been like a 15-yard gain, and Tarvarius Moore took such a bad angle that Juju scored a touchdown on it. And it was like, oh my God, that was the worst angle I think I've ever seen. So you have to take the proper angle. You have to be flowing towards the football. I'll take a guy with mediocre size and speed who knows how to play the position, Talanoa Hufanga, over a guy with awesome size and speed, a combine, menace, but doesn't know how to play the position, Tarvarius Moore. So that's what Malik Mustafa is. He is a Hufanga. He's flowing in the right direction. He spent 2020. He was a highly recruited backup. He played at Richmond and then transferred to Wake Forest. Wake Forest, a really good academic school. His kid's smart. He's got physicality and ability against the run. One scout said he can cover tight ends, maybe. Says a backup in 2021, he suffered a torn ACL in the Gator Bowl, but returned to start 10 games in 2022. The quote from the scout was, "I thought he was faster than that. He ran 4.54." A second scout said, "He's not the biggest guy, but he's smart, instinctive, and has a nose for the ball. He does it all. He's a good tackler. He should be a top 10 safety." Finished with 192 tackles, 15 TFLs, tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, 10 PBUs, passes defense. His vertical was 41.5. That's a great vertical. His bench press was 22. That's a great bench. Both of those numbers led the safety position. There was no safety who jumped any higher. There was no safety that put up any more reps. So this guy's strong. He's athletic. His 40 was marginal. One guy says he's more of a strong safety type that's physical. I would disagree. I think there's enough movement ability there where he could play the free safety spot. I think he can cover the deep middle and the cover 3. So we're going to find out. Tony Pauline, who, as I said, I've trusted with many, many evaluations, really, really sharp. This is what Pauline's report said. Instinctive safety with underrated athleticism. Quickly diagnoses plays. That's exactly what I'm talking about. This guy knows what he's seeing at the line of scrimmage, pre-snap and post-snap. Remains disciplined with assignments and works hard to get involved in the action. Very active, consistently around the ball, fires upfield to defend the run, sells out to make the tackle, drives his shoulders through the ball handlers, goes after opponents and wraps up at the point of attack, tracks the pass in center field, makes his move to the throw, then gets vertical and contorts to defend the pass, moves well laterally and displays excellent range, works well with cornerbacks to bracket receivers over the middle of the field, did not show much improvement last season, plays to one speed, did not stand out during the Senior Bowl practices, lacks height, comes with short arms and small hands. Mustafa is a tough, intelligent defensive back who has potential in a variety of roles and can safely play over the slot receiver. He's likely to fall into the middle part of day 3 of the draft, but he has all the tools to line up as a nickel safety on Sundays. So there you go. There's the breakdown from the scouts, and there's a lot of good stuff there. So, Kyle Posey, way to go, man. Great article on Niners Nation. But I think more so than, I think what you see with Mustafa is he doesn't have awesome 40 time. And there are people that question his ability to cover the field as a free safety in a zone or in man. Some people feel like he's a box safety and he's a small one at that, but he hits like a truck. He's competitive as hell. He diagnoses what he sees well. This guy can play. This guy can absolutely play safety in the NFL, and I think at a pretty high level. And in a loser year for safeties, the Niners got themselves, I think, one of the 4 or 5 best, maybe the 3 or 4 best in the draft class. So they got to feel good about that. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.